For me, if I can control it, I set the standard, it's important. But if it's somebody else's standard and I'm like, okay, this is building your thing, but now my people suffer,
Right.
it's hard for me to do that. Like, I am a leader through and through.
Grow your skill sets. I
Yep.
tell kids that you should grow your skill sets before you do anything else.
I hired 13 people because I learned it's not me that grows this, it's a team that grows it.
With a little help and a little wealth and a lot of love, that's the life that we live. Suits and scrubs.
Hello, everybody! Guys, welcome to another episode of Suits and Scrubs. I have a really good one for you guys today. I'm super excited. I'm joined by my man here, Ross from Maverick
Solutions. Yep.
He is in my network, but he is an AI specialist. Y'all know how I feel about AI. Like, I talk about it a lot in the episodes. I've never done a deep dive because I've never like what I believe here, Suits and Scrubs, is I don't like just someone who's an academic, which I believe I am a practitioner. I want to find someone who's a practitioner, and I have found no better than this man right here. In fact, we were geeking out before this whole episode talking about this stuff, and I said, man, we got to turn on the camera because this is some gems right here. But as always, a little health, a little wealth, a lot of love. I don't want to steal your thunder here, but I'd love for you to tell our audience, our viewers, about where you started and how did you get into AI? And this man's been very successful with it, and he was showing me things before the camera started rolling, and I'm blown away. So take it away.
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you, man. I'll go all the way back to high school. We already talked about the school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my whole life, I was great at baseball. So I wanted to play baseball in college. I wanted to be a pro, do everything there. Through high school, we moved from that inner city school where it was a big school. So you got your 5A schools. It was that. Well, I got cut from my 6th grade team and my family started looking around. They wanted to land anyway. And they're like, well, if he's not going to make the team here, we got to do something.
Right.
So at that time, I'm like, well, I'm going to earn my way on next year. My parents kind of ripped that away from me. And I resented them thinking, no, you just wanted this house out here in the country where you wanted to be.
Right.
Looking back as a parent now, I'm like, they were doing that for me and themselves. Like, it's not a one or the other. Life doesn't work that way.
Right.
It was all together. So we went out to this school in rural Indiana, and I graduated with 189 people. I was like 47th out of that class. I was not smart. Like, I didn't focus on school. Like, I'm not a study guy.
I'm not smart.
I'm smart, but not in an educational way.
Yeah.
I have to put something in practice. I have to learn how to do it. But book learning, I don't think we were wired to learn that way. I think we are wired to learn from failure.
Yeah.
You have to try it.
I love that.
Up, come back and find your solution, and then go back out and figure out what you did wrong and how you can apply that solution to fix it.
And most people say you learn more from your failures than your successes.
Funny story about that, and then I'll get back to about me is I used to fail tests, and I would go home and study the questions that I missed. I would actually miss some of the questions on the retest that I would take that I got right because I didn't study them as much as I did the ones that I missed. And now as an adult, I look at that and I say, well, I need to fail more than I succeed because I learn more from those failures than I do from the successes. The successes are par for the course.
Right.
Failures are the things that stick with you and you never want to forget.
That's true.
So I fail as many times and as fast as I can. And it's been a detriment at times, but then I come back with a solution since like, well, why didn't I do this the whole time?
Right. Before the camera's rolling, you had a bunch of careers. So tell me about just like not too much detail, but like all the steps to get to where you are now with AI.
So I'll go back to high school because my whole life was baseball. And I didn't have the best family life. My parents got divorced when I was 7. My dad decided to go through some bad life choices that I'm not going to talk about publicly, which affected us. I went 7 years without seeing him. So I had that in my brain of that void that was there. My mom married a man who I actually don't have a relationship with today, who he and I used to get in just physical altercations from the time I was 14 on until I was 18. I moved out and she's still with him and that's whatever. But that molded me to where I put everything into baseball. And that was my escape. So I ended up was, as of my junior year, was ranked in the top 5 in the state for hitting and pitching stats.
Wow.
Senior year, again, top 5 in the state for both stats. Went to a small school. I told my coach I want to go to UNC. I want to go to all these D1 schools. He laughed at me and says, we're not a big enough school. You're never going to make it there. So I got no recruits out there to look at me. Nobody was watching. Went out in between my junior and senior year and made relationships with my private coach.
You did this?
Yeah. So
How did you know how to do that?
I got blessed. It was a very opportune moment. Guy came to an FCA meeting at school. And for those of you who don't know, that's Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So I was in there, and it was funny. He came in and he was talking about being a pro athlete. When I left, I thought he was a pro football player, and this dude was small. His name's Stan Lovins. He's an amazing man, and he's an evangelist, actually. So he's actually given up baseball. What he did was he built a coaching, basically an entire training facility, and the hook was baseball, but he came in to minister to you.
Nice.
So he was
What a way to connect with kids on that. I love that. So that definitely shaped you, it sounds like.
100%.
Wow.
I truly believe in the love of Jesus Christ and not religion.
Right.
Religion turns more people away from Jesus Christ every year than Christians being Christians and shining the light of Jesus Christ through them.
Right.
I cuss a lot, and a lot of Christians will get that confused with the Bible saying don't curse. Mm-hmm. To me, a curse is saying you're an idiot, you'll never do anything in your life, and you curse them, you put them down, versus saying a cuss word.
I respect that. Like I'm a heavy cusser myself, obviously, right? You know, people watching on the channel, like, you know, yeah.
This might set records for cuss words on your channel.
That's okay. That's okay. That's what we're here to do. And I want you to be authentically who you are, and I want you to share your story and how you went through these times and how it shaped you.
Yep.
And so let's fast forward to adulthood. So what was your first big job? And then how did that progress into where you are now?
Yeah, so that was going to college, and I went to school for marketing and a minor in psychology. And during that time, I was smoking a lot of weed, drinking at every baseball party that we could go to. And I wasn't mentally prepared. Physically, I had everything to make it in the MLB. Mentally, I was not there. I was still damaged from a child. I didn't think I was worthy of it. So what did I do? Instead of taking it seriously and putting in the work, which I put in the work, but I was stoned or hungover every single day at practice. So I wasn't doing the right kind of work. And so I got a marketing job out of school at a residential facility. These kids were taken from their homes, whether it was from DCS or whether it was from the school systems or somebody privately putting their kids into these homes because they couldn't handle them. And during that time, the state started changing regulations to where they were no longer putting people into these residential facilities, and they were putting more of an emphasis on keeping people at home and having counselors go to the house to help. Well, I was the marketing director for that at the time. 6 months into that, they're like, hey, we're shutting down the facility. So I get laid off. At that point, a buddy of mine from high school who I played travel ball with is doing life insurance. And he's like, before this, another big thing that shaped me was a friend of mine was killed in a car accident, and his family didn't have life insurance on him. So he was engaged at that time. His fiance died in the car accident with him. And I just asked myself, why the hell does the family have to suffer like this the whole time?
Right.
And while that's happening, I hear this from my buddy David, who's like, hey, I've got this opportunity. And he taught me about residual income. And so I'm like, the why behind it is I want to make sure that families don't go through the same thing that Luke's family went through.
Right.
And then I also learned the benefit to me was residual income. I saw a life insurance policy. Now I get paid on it every year that they keep it and continue to grow that and stack. So
isn't it funny though, not to interrupt you, so isn't it funny how something is told to us and then we're like, I don't know. And then a life event happens because someone sat in your same chair and they said that they were trying to get someone to buy a house and their credit wasn't there where they needed to be. And they said that, and he had 2 times someone tried to recruit him into, not recruit, but just tell him about the services. And then he put them together. It's like, wait a minute, there was a demand for that. So I just connected them and how it triggered. And that's how he jumped into this. Same thing with you.
Yep.
It's just a powerful thing.
And what I've learned over time is that your life is a series of events that leads you to where you are. And most people don't see the series of events and why they have landed them here. And that's one benefit I think my brain has kind of connected is I was
definitely
here.
think differently.
Yeah. And it was this to this to this that led me here.
Yeah.
And it's because of the failures that happened that I connect the dots to be able to stack the successes going forward.
Right.
So
you worked in marketing and then.
Yep. So then into life insurance where you had to have marketing.
Right. Yep.
Which I sucked at. And that's the other thing I didn't tell you about is I probably should have been fired from that marketing job because I sucked at it. Another thing I didn't tell you is my dad worked at that residential facility as a counselor. So I would take him some of the marketing materials I went to, and I remember this one marketing sheet that I did for an event where we invited all the parents out to learn about the facility and get to walk through and see what their kids are living. And I did yellow and white stripes down this thing. And I took it in and I'm like, what do you think of this? Dead serious, thought it looked good. And he looked at me and laughed. I'm like, what? And he goes, da 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 da. He goes, this looks like you're doing a flyer for the circus.
No, that's pretty funny.
And so I laughed at him. I said, well, this place kind of is a circus sometimes.
Right,
and he was like, you cannot do that. He got real serious when I said that. He didn't think it was funny as I did.
I love it.
But I wasn't good at marketing. Like, again, imagine if my whole life is going to work to be in the MLB
100%.
and I'm high and hungover every single day. What do you think class was like?
Right.
So I'm not learning anything
Right.
about marketing. I'm not learning. I'm just going through to pass the courses.
Right.
And it was the reality of it hadn't set in that, oh, I didn't get a scholarship. I'm paying $30,000 from my school to go to. And if I don't take this seriously, I still have to pay those student loans.
Right.
So didn't quite grasp everything that was happening there. So then I go through life insurance and then I find out a lot of shady practices are happening, and the company worked with union workers. So you go to these people and they're making maybe $30,000, $40,000 a year, and yet you're trying to sell them a policy that's $400 or $500 a month.
Right.
That's a massive piece of their income every single month.
That is.
So we're not talking to what I now know as a marketer who does different things.
Yeah.
My ideal avatar who can afford the things that I'm selling them. It's talking to people who are below the means of income that can afford what I'm selling them.
Right.
So I start to feel slimy about it. I'm like, okay,
I love that.
they're pushing this, and I'm just like, I can't do this.
Wow.
So I'm like, well, what can I do to help people?
I resonate with that so hard. I don't want to like glaze by that because that's powerful. I imagine that you're probably making some decent income, right?
Decent?
Enough. But I was in a similar situation where we had to sell reverse mortgages in our community bank at the time. Our population coming into the bank was all elders. And so we were asked to push these products. And I really challenged this whole presentation. And I felt so good about myself, you know. And at the end of the meeting, and this was when I sold my first company, and I was like high on all that, you know. I think I'm smarter than everybody in the room, you know. I was like, oh, you know, whatever. And then I got grounded, and it says, you know, that was really disrespectful. You did this in front of the whole banking center. And I was looking at her, I was like, would you sell this product to your mom? And she's like, she didn't say anything. She just went. So I resonate with that. I just want to just tell you that. I'm mad respect for that.
Well, and that says a lot about you because there's a lot of people that don't have that character because the money outweighs the person.
100%.
And that to me just never flies. So I said, what can I do now? Well, I wanted to get into PNC because I thought, man, I can help people on the auto side, because that's another thing that happened with Luke was they had auto insurance, and what resonated to me was he got a Chevy Malibu, or his family got a Chevy Malibu after that car was totaled. And they said that was his dream car. So first of all, me wanting the life I was, thinking like, damn, that was his dream car. And then secondly, to think that his family got to drive in his dream car and thought that is kind of cool, actually. And that's very sweet that they got to drive in his dream car after this. And he got to provide that for them because of the car insurance. So I thought, let me go into this. This is something that I can get behind. I can do auto and home insurance.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm actually helping people. And by the way, if I do this, I can save some people money because that whole slimy piece. So going into that, 30 days after I wrote my first policy, I get a call at 4 a.m, still smoking weed all the time. High as shit. I was smoking weed, taking Adderall to pass my test. I failed my exam 3 times before I finally passed it. And
those tests are hard, though.
they're not easy, but I should have given it more thought. I was looking at the residual income and looking at this is a career opportunity I can get behind. Didn't understand the weight of it.
Right.
4 a.m. comes 30 days after I wrote this policy. Woman on the other line bawling. And she says, Ross, it burned down. I'm like, I'm high, got smoking weed the night before. I'm like, what? What burned down? And she's like, our house burned down. And I snap out of it. I'm like, oh, is everybody okay? That was my first question. Is everybody okay? Yes, everybody got out, but we lost everything. The house burned to the ground. And so I'm like, and she's like, what do we do? 30 days in, been licensed for 30 days, wrote this policy. My mentor helped me write it at the time. And I say, let me check your policy. I'll call you back, thinking, I hope I wrote this the right way. And so so I called my mentor at 4:05 and I'm in a panic. I'm like, Josh, their house burnt down. They don't know what they're going to do. Are they covered? And I'm freaking the out. And he's like, calm your ass down. Who are you talking about? Your house burnt down? What? I'm like, no, her house burnt down. And I told him who it was. He's like, okay, I remember you writing that policy. I helped you with it. It's good. Take your dumb ass, hang up this phone, call them back and tell them to go to hotel, save their receipts, keep everything. We will reimburse them. Get closed, do whatever you need to do. We will reimburse them. It's covered on the loss of use of their policy. So for anybody out there, if anything ever happens to you on your homeowners, you have loss of use, which means they will pay for you a place to stay. They will buy you new clothes, and you have a set amount on your policy that will take care of that.
Did not know that.
So you have that.
That's probably going to be a reel. So nice. Oh, nice. Sweet them gems. Yeah.
So that's one thing that you need to pay attention to that you have. And I called her back, told her it was fine, but the reality set in at that point. And I said, this is more than just residual income where you're paying me again every time your policy renews. This is about people's livelihood. This is about what they've worked for. So from then on, it became, how do I write a policy as if someone's going to call me at 4 a.m, their house burnt down, and I can put them at ease and say, you're taken care of.
Right.
And again, these failures built me throughout my life. So went through that and I built that. And this was a captive company. They had big quotas. Again, I sucked at marketing. So I didn't know.
What does that mean when you say you sucked at marketing?
It means that the quota on this was 40 and 4. So every quarter, and I look back at this now and I laugh because I could bring this in weekly now. But every quarter,
experience, man.
Right? I had to sell 40 home or life policies, which means not even an auto policy, a car. So you have 2 vehicles in your household, plus your house, that's 3. I only had to do that, 13 more times? And I had it.
Right.
I couldn't hit that in a quarter, and you had to sell 4 life insurance policies. So there was a quota on this, 40 and 4. And then in the second year...
Were you independent contractor or you worked specifically for that firm?
I worked for that firm at the time as a 1099.
Gotcha.
But to maintain the contract, they gave you a draw.
Gotcha.
So you got $3,000 every single month for being on this contract, but you had to hit these quotas.
Right.
And then if you went above and beyond, you got the whole commission.
Right.
And if not, you owed the money at the end of it.
Wow, that's a contract.
It is. I was 22 at the time. Had no idea. Didn't have a head on my shoulders like you for what things were.
No, that's not.
Right? So I was trying to figure it out and was in a bad contract. I would never sign that contract now.
Right.
And so after the first year, I was just barely meeting or not meeting, and they would give you the grace until the end of the year. When my second year came around, it had a renewal every single year. When I renewed the second year, it was going to be 50 and 5, and then it was 60 and 6 in the third year. And
dang,
I wasn't going to meet those quotas in the second year. Because once I burned through my immediate family and friends, I didn't know how to market to people I didn't know.
Interesting. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. What do you want to know?
Yeah. So you transitioned. You're learning marketing on the job, and I think honestly, an applicable life experience. We talked about this yesterday in the prior podcast episode where, have you used the quadratic formula? They don't teach financial literacy with the whole thing on that, which I'll pin that because that's a whole conversation for another time because you and I will probably talk about that for the next hour or two. But one thing you said that I really like is, so how did you build your marketing toolkit? Because from what I see and what you present, I'm very impressed. So tell me how you built that toolkit.
I found mentors that taught me. It was not me. I learned through failure, and then I decided failing was taking too long, and I started paying people. So I
buy someone's 10,000 hours. I say that on almost every single episode. If you can be in a position to buy my whole ebooks on this. I had a gift method, which sounds cheesy, I know, but
Every acronym is really.
right. But G represents grow your skill sets. I tell kids that you should grow your skill sets before you do anything else.
100%.
And put all your money into that. Don't worry about stock market. Don't worry about real estate. Put your money into and I still do it. And people set aside. And again, and this is what this podcast is about. So grow is this category, and thrive. So I is initiate financial freedom, which is like understanding specific investments. Then F is like forge financial strategies, like building wealth.
Yep.
And then thrive. I'm right between F and T right now. Yeah. Anyway,
I agree with you. And I think that definition varies for what your goal in life is. Like, if anybody's out there listening, I would tell you, you can't build anything without figuring out what lifestyle you want to build.
100%.
Because I had to sit back and say, who is my ideal self? What's my ideal lifestyle for my family? How much does that lifestyle cost?
Right.
You can't do that with a W-2. Because at some point you're going to run into the threshold of somebody's not willing to pay you what you're actually worth.
Right.
Most companies need a 10x return on your investment of your salary.
Right.
If you're not providing that, they will find the next person who will provide
100%.
that. So
there are some exceptions to the rule. So I think that, we're high earners. We have some doctors listening and things like that. But I do think that there should be a paradigm shift in some of these industries like doctors, where it's now swinging to administration and politics and insurance. But if it swung right back to where it should be, it used to be that way, it'd be a powerful thing.
I'll tell you, I don't care if you're a high earner or not. The doctors, have you looked at the insurance and how much the insurance company is paying on all these things? The doctor is not taking 50, 60, 70% of the income that's coming in.
That's right.
So I don't care how high of an earner you are.
Right.
If the company does not have the finances to function and continue to grow and scale, you are not worth it.
Right.
And so what they'll do is they'll grab a doctor fresh out of residency and pay them less, and they'll get rid of tenured doctors because of that, and they'll find a reason. I've seen it happen in the hospital system.
I've seen it too.
So it doesn't matter. If you are working for somebody else, you are at their mercy.
Right. That is a fact.
And I don't care how high of an earner you are. At the end of the day, we talked about this earlier. It is a safety net to have a W-2. It's a safety net to have a salary, but it's also a crutch that holds you back.
It is.
If I have to walk with a crutch, I can never run.
Right.
But if I ditch the crutch, like Forrest Gump.
No, I love it. Run, Forrest.
Yeah. The man had the bindings on his legs.
Right.
That is the salary holding you in place.
That's right.
As soon as you break free from those shackles, you might fall flat on your face a few times.
Yeah.
But you're also going to build that strength and that knowledge to figure out how to get through it.
That's right. So how do you apply that to building your marketing? So you had mentors.
Yep.
And so you worked in insurance for a while. And then how did that move into AI? What a really interesting.
So I went through a few captive companies. And during that time, I realized every time I signed a contract. And I was always captive. And I only, when I left, was able to get out of the contract by giving them my book of business that I built up. So after the first one, I incorporated an LLC where it was my company that contracted instead of me. Gave me a little bit of liability protection.
How did you know how to do that?
I learned from the last contract.
Smart.
That it was on me. And if they came after me for that money and I wasn't able to negotiate back.
So how old were you when you first contracted this one? This is important because like a lot of my listeners are actually younger.
Yep.
And like this is great advice, And so tell me your like the age differences.
So I was 22 in my life insurance journey. When I left there and went to the captive P&C side, I was 23. They had churn on the business, which means that people either canceled their policy or they wrote with somebody else. And so I had a negative vector, which I didn't know what that means. They threw that big word at me. I had to figure out what it means, which means that they had a loss on me as an employee because we had lost more money than we made on commissions. And since I canceled, they couldn't do a chargeback on me because I'd already left. So they had a negative vector on that, and they tried to sue me over that. Well, I went to bat and said, listen, I did my job. I left. Y'all assume that responsibility. Jeez. And so that's on you as an agency. It's on you. And I had to grow a pair and tell them that, which was nerve-wracking. But luckily, I did have a good mentor at the captive agency. I told him everything, was transparent, and I was scared. I'm like, what do I do? And he said, give him the finger, tell him to talk to your attorney. They're not going to be able to do anything. We all know that that's the risk you have when you hire people on in these businesses. Right. So did that, built this up over here, realizing now that that was a bad contract, but it was a good opportunity to learn. He taught me how to be the professional in the job. That taught me how to take care of people, but I failed that contract because I didn't know how to market. So then I went on to independent after that. I hired 13 people because I learned it's not me that grows this, it's a team that grows it.
That's right.
And so I hired 13 people. 2 of those were producing a business, and I was producing enough to get by. And I put together the agency, and we were independent. So I had Progressive, Travelers, Grange, all these carriers that we were going through. And I thought the broker method was the better method.
So you're an entrepreneur.
I am an entrepreneur.
That's awesome. So this is when you are like really like, I argue that any person who's a 1099 employee, you know, they are somewhat of an entrepreneur, right?
100%.
And then so like, how old were you when you first started this LLC? And
That was 23.
23.
Yeah.
Wow.
So 23.
You might have just had this innate with you.
I've always been an entrepreneur mindset. Like, I want to figure it out for myself. I want to be independent. I've never been able, I'm a terrible employee. Like, even I've got buddies of mine now who just left one of the companies that I use for some of my systems. He and I became friends because I'm one of the top producers for that system, and I bring them a ton of money, and he was helping develop it. So we were like this. I'm going to him, talking to him about everything that I need for the system to be successful. And he's going to the developers and getting it done. He's talking to the CEO of that company saying, this is the direction we need to move in. He got fed up with it and he left. And now he's got this, what's really cool. There's these virtual offices. I don't know if you've seen these things. You literally have a desk with your little head in it. You can go into your office and shut the door, and people don't know, like, they can't access you when the door's shut.
That's cool.
You open the door and they can access you. He invited me in. He's like, hey, we started our own thing over here, but you're the only person we want in this office with us. So we become friends, and we're in there. He invited me in there as of Monday. Today was the first day I got in there. I'm just a terrible, like, working with people person,
Right.
unless it's my deal.
Right.
Because for me, if I can control it, I set the standard.
Right.
It's important. But if it's somebody else's standard and I'm like, okay, this is building your thing, but now my people suffer.
Right.
It's hard for me to do that. Like, I am a leader through and through.
Right. You're just like me. I feel that 100%. Like, I'm almost a control freak when it comes to things like that, because I have the highest expectations and I hold everyone else around that to my level of standard. But I always tell people, I say, y'all think that's bad? Y'all should see how hard I am on myself. You know what I mean? I'm really hard on myself. Like, yeah, my inner child, I feel bad for him. I'm kicking him all the time. Like, why didn't you do this? And why did you do this wrong? You do this wrong. And so, yeah, so you build all these experiences. And then when did you start getting good at marketing?
That was about 4 years ago now. I got really good at it. So fast forward from the captive agency to the independent agency, my wife graduates pharmacy school. We got to move. And I knew I wanted to marry this woman since the day we met. I was 18, she was 17.
Wow.
So we've been together a long ass time.
Yeah, my brother and his wife, they've known each other 13 years old.
Yep.
They've been together.
Yep. That's
still together.
impressive.
Impressive.
That is really, because you grow a lot in that
You're
time.
not the same I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago.
Nope.
And, you know, yeah, you really do change a lot.
Yep. And I'll tell you again, for relationship advice for anybody who's watching this, grow with your person.
Yeah.
The one thing that we did, we started growing apart. She's pharmacy, I'm business. Like, those two don't mesh well. Medicine and business, or they shouldn't be together.
They shouldn't be
really,
together.
because I don't want my doctor thinking about the business aspect when they're
Right.
treating me.
Right.
Right. Like,
Right.
medicine shouldn't go together with business, but
Right.
they have to pair
Right.
for those reasons. And now she's gotten into the administration side and she's growing. And now we can talk about automation.
Interesting. Yeah.
So it's
I
fun.
bet
But
she's just like, yes, I know I can do it better, but let me figure it out. That's
no,
what
she actually, she comes to me and she's like, hey, I have this problem where we're bottlenecked. How would you fix this? I'm like, well, do this automation, do this, this, and this. And she's like, cool. So then she takes it to the team and they implement it.
That's crazy. That's good because I don't know. Husbands are natural fixers.
Yep.
And, you know, this is what I learned, guys. Is this a listening problem or is this a solving problem? I have not done that well.
I can agree. I don't do that well either.
I
I'm going to drink to that one.
I still, yeah, I'll cheers to that one. I'm a fixer. You know, and then when she brings me a problem, and even yesterday we're talking about this problem, and I'm just like, And the thing is, I'm already hot because she never takes my advice. She never will. And I'm a business expert. I'm a productivity expert. I've done like so many great things. And the areas that she struggles in, she will not take my advice. But at the same time, to respect her, she needs to figure out on her own. And she comes to me and she wants me to help her. But also, this is her learning journey. This is her growth. And I can't do that for her.
100%.
And that's where, like, you know, I'm like I got to sit the down. My therapist watching, they'd be proud of me. I gotta drink my own Kool-Aid.
Right.
I had an epiphany. Okay, go ahead.
No, and it's so true. It's hard as a husband to watch your wife go through a struggle because we are the fixers, we are the providers, we're the protectors.
That's right.
So if you can't protect, you think, man, I'm failing as a husband.
Exactly.
But now as a father, I'll tell you too, watching your kids fall down has taught me they have to learn to get back up on their own. I can't run and pick them up.
Right.
Same thing goes for your wife. She's stronger than you think she is. And every time you go to pick her up, you're telling her she's not strong enough.
Right.
So, and you can go the other direction too and be like, you're fine. And then you're like, oh, you needed some picking up there. And then you have to kick yourself later on. And
it's hard. It's hard. It's a Rubik's Cube. Life is a Rubik's Cube, in my opinion. So tell me about when you got really good at marketing.
Yeah. So with that, I started networking with people and I realized I never knew what networking was. I'm like, I need to go to this networking event. Well, I'm kind of an introvert. I'm great one-on-one, but I'm terrible in group settings. Like, I just don't do well. I'm the guy who will be the life of the conversation when we're talking one-on-one, but you go to a party, I'm sitting in the corner. As a business owner, as a salesperson, as a marketer, you have to develop your dream avatar. Who is it that I want to work with? So if you're in sales, well, who's my best client? Who's the person that I made the most money with? I enjoyed the conversation and they're the least work on the back end. Now I figure out what the ideal traits are of that person and I go find 25 more people like them, put them on a list, get one, cross them off the list, replace them with another, and your dream 25 is constantly working. So I started doing that and that was great because now I can deploy the social media aspect of I go interact with them on a social media post. I message them privately and say, hey, I love what you're doing. I would love to get to know you a little bit better. And it can be this subliminal thing where they don't know what's going on, or some of them will call me and be like, what do you want? And they call me on it. And I'm like, listen, you're my ideal client that I want to work with. Do you have this problem? I would love to do it. And I'm very transparent about it.
Love that.
And the honesty of that goes a long way. I actually get more people whenever I just call them and say, hey, you're my ideal client. Because psychologically, that does two things. First of all, they say, I can trust you because you're honest with me and you're not. And then secondly, they say, oh, I'm a little flattered. You want to work with me? And there's those two things go really hand to hand together because what you need to do is build a know, like, and trust factor. So that just got a like factor because you just hit that dopamine if you like me.
That's what I kept doing with you.
Right?
I was like, I want to work with you. I really want to work with you.
And I saw it the whole time, man. And that's cool because I want to work with people who want to work with me. And that's another criteria that I have is if you don't want to work with me, good. Don't work with me. I don't want to work with you either because you're going to make my life miserable if I have to pander to you every single time I talk to you. So this is actually a funny story too. I grew up in a very religious family to where you couldn't cuss, you couldn't do anything. My mom walked down in the basement. I was watching Die Hard one day and I was in middle school and she heard Bruce Willis, yippee-ki-yay, and all this. And she comes down and she shuts it off and she's like, is that how you talk when you're not in this house? And threw a big old fit about it. And I remember that to this day and I'm like, that is how I talk when I'm out of this house. Why can't I be who I am in this house? And that was a big hurdle that I had to overcome as an adult is I have to be able to be me through and through. And I respected Gary Vee for that. Talking about multiple times, like, why do you talk like this? Well, he's like, well, that's who I am. And so I stopped worrying about offending people and realized if I offend you, that's a you problem and not a me problem. And I am me. And I only want to be me around people that are okay with that. And if you're not okay with it, I hope I turn you off.
I love that because do you know the Feuder, Asian guy that has tape on his hat? I don't know his name.
No, I don't.
He's like one of the biggest personal branding consultants in the world, probably. Check him out, actually. And he talks about living your truth and be authentically himself. He says, yeah, I'll come up here. He wears glasses. He has a whole brand image, whatever. He wears glasses and he has his hat on. And he's like, yeah, people don't like me and I don't care. He's like millions of followers. He's crushing the game. And I love listening to him because he's very, he uses disciplines and he studies cultures and that's what I think about people on the planet. Like everything you've ever done has already been done, I feel like.
Yep.
But if you take multiple and then you turn it into, because if you like this, and you pull it together and you have a unique perspective, that's what the human experience is, in my opinion.
That's it, man. Like I started becoming authentically myself, and I started intentionally going after the people that I wanted to work with. And I learned, for those of you who struggle at networking, all networking is making friends. I used to think I had to impress you about the business that I could do. I had to save you money. I had to make you money. No.
Yeah.
People do business with people they know, like, and trust.
That's right.
And so if you can be authentically yourself, you're going to turn off 10 times more people than you attract. Mm-hmm. But those people you attract are going to be your people.
Right.
They're going to be the people who work with you. They recommend you. They buy from you. They do everything with you because they trust you, they know you, and they like you.
I love it.
And that is what turned it around. So in my insurance business, I was doing about 30 leads a month. And I thought that was good. 1 lead a day that I'm closing. I'm like, cool, this is great. And let me backtrack. I don't want to sound more successful than I was. I was getting 30 leads in. I was closing at about a 70% rate. So it wasn't even closing 1 a day.
70% is pretty good, right?
Remember my story going back.
Yeah.
If you're going to work with me, you're going to know that you're calling me at 4 a.m. I'm going to answer that call.
Right.
And then I'm talking to you as if your house is burning down, and I'm going to take care of you. Wow. So when you have that mentality, you can close higher rates because you're leading with value and not price.
I love it.
So
I love that.
It was my turning point. And that was in about 2017 that really started to turn around for me. And we started having kids. And then even then, I wasn't who I wanted to be. I was still angry and bitter from my childhood. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of these things happening.
Like resentment.
Yeah.
I feel that.
And so, and one thing...
Did you ever see, like this is totally off tangent, and this is probably a longer episode, and that's totally fine. We can cut it into 1 or 2 episodes or whatever. Did you ever go to therapy or to talk or to work through, or would you ever entertain that? And listen, I'm a big proponent of it. I've been in therapy, after my first marriage failed, I knew something was the fuck wrong with me, and it was, and I went through a lot of abuses, mentally, physically, others, which I've not publicly talked about, and I won't publicly talk about, but I will do a whole episode on that eventually. And it's taken me a long time to help me understand why I was put in harm's way and all that other stuff. And so it really shaped me to who I am, and it's something I really would recommend to anyone. And because sometimes you feel like you have it all, and then you have a very common theme I'm seeing. You have to perform to be loved, and that's not just anyone else, that's yourself.
Yep.
And I had the same message. It's the internal message. And so I say thousands of dollars of therapy, but at the same time, when you get a personal trainer, it's the same thing. Like therapy has such a negative connotation, and it shouldn't. When my wife went to Christian counseling before, we were trying to be on the same page for things. What if infidelity happens? What if you're bankrupt? What if this? How do you work through the issues? And so it's important. So I just want to, I don't know if you've ever entertained that, but
no, I did. So as a kid, with everything that happened with my dad, I did go to therapy, but none of it helped. Right? You go to therapy and you feel safe, you have your conversations, and you go back into the dangerous environment that you live in. And so you have to put those shells back up. What truly changed for me was when my kids were young. My kids are 17, 18 months apart, right? So we had a newborn, and my oldest son, who was about 18 months, he was probably 20 some odd months at that time. And my youngest was starting to crawl and move around. And every morning, my wife was going into the office at that time, so I was taking care of the kids. And my youngest disappeared on me. I went upstairs to get dressed. We had the gates up. I had no idea what was going on. I'm like, did somebody come into the house and take him?
Right.
Don't know. My oldest is barely talking. And the youngest disappeared. I'm like, where's your brother? And he's like, Brooksy Dirty, which could have meant in the toilet, could have meant in the dog water, could have meant anything.
You're sweating bullets.
Oh, and I escalated every time to this not even 2-year-old baby, to the point where I'm like, where's your brother? And I lost it, and I yelled. Right. And he looked up at me terrified. And at that point in time, like I could see him shaking because he was terrified. I contemplated killing myself.
Oh, geez.
Because I went through a very abusive childhood, and I said, I'm becoming that to my kids. Would they be better off without me?
Generational curses.
Exactly.
I've a lot of those. We all do.
So at that point, I had a choice. Do I continue to go down this path, which where you said you have to be the success is to do everything, and my business was floundering at the time, and I was stagnant, and I was not at my healthiest, and I felt like everything was falling apart. And as soon as that happened, I said, if I keep going down this path, I'm going to get to be an abusive father, and I'm not going to do that to my kids. So one, I'm going to end it, or two, I'm going to get better. So then I decided to go on a personal growth journey. So coming back to the therapy side of, I had to understand and accept that everything that happened to me as a child was part of who I am. And do I like where I'm going, or do I not like it? Either way, I'm not a victim of it. I get to control it going forward.
That's what I say.
Yeah. And so if I'm a victim, I say this is who I am and I can't change it. Or I say these are the things that shaped me, and I can look at them as failures, and I can say what step became what step to get me to where I am to become the person I want. So then I did an exercise where you step back, you close your eyes, and you take a look at who's my ideal self in 20 years. Who is this person that I want to be? Where am I? What are the conversations I'm having? What are the clothes I'm wearing? What is the car in the driveway? What house am I living in? What food am I eating? Everything. What schools are my kids going to? What do they get to do because of what I've done in my life? You close your eyes, take a step back, you visualize it for about 30 to 40 seconds, and you really see it. And then you take a step back into that person that you are, that you visualized. Once I did that, it all became very clear to me. I had to get my anger issues under control because I had to let go of the things that happened to me in my past. I had to understand that my marketing efforts weren't succeeding because of me and no one else. I had to get everything in order.
Transition.
And that was the moment. I remember to this day, I still get goosebumps sitting here thinking about it because that's what happened. I became that person that I saw. And now my mentor is that person. Whenever I have problems, I talk to myself at 80 years old and I say, hey, I'm going through this. What would you have done, or what did you do to get past this? And that's the powerful part. I still struggle with that. It's not what would you have done. I'm talking to that person. They've already done it. What did you do to get past this? And it's amazing. You get clarity and you're like, okay, well, now I'm looking at it from the 80-year-old me's perspective. Now I can make that choice as it's already happened, because we all look back on our life. Hindsight's 20/20, right? So now if I look back at myself 40 years, 50 years in advance, this isn't as big of a deal as I think it is. So whenever you put it into that perspective, and really having kids made that transition for me. My wife calmed me down a lot. Growing up, she was my rock, my stability.
So women do. Women ground us. Emily grounds me. So
and my kids have built me into the man that I'm going to become, because I have two boys. It's not about what I tell them, it's about what I show them. So if I'm living one way and I'm telling them something different, what are they going to do? They're going to do what I'm living. Or they're going to go complete 180 and say, I don't want what dad is. So I have two choices. I either be the man that they can aspire to be and be their hero, or I can be the man that they become that I don't want them to be, or that they turn away from. Most of my decisions in life have come from, I don't want that. I don't want my kids to do that. I want a relationship. I want my kids to be my friends. I want them to come to me with everything. I remember thinking in high school, I didn't get drunk until I was 17. Didn't have anything until I was 17. And I got hammered. And I remember being in a place where it was just a bad situation. And I didn't come home the next day because I was so hungover. And just remembering that feeling of not being able to trust my family to accept me. I never want my kids to go through that. So
yeah, I think that's hard. I think coming through acceptance, and I think that your internal message is, you are enough.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, it's like, do you feel it? Like, do you ever feel like, because when you have a foundation that's so broken and so cracked, it's hard to look at yourself in the mirror sometimes. Even you accumulated so much success and things like that, and where you come from, and your role models weren't. Your family's supposed to be your protectors, and when that's how your critical mind is changing, and I really do appreciate you sharing that, because you are human. And a lot of parents listening are probably could relate to that. I've known parents told me, like, they had a really bad baby and they were taking the baby and they're like, what is wrong with you? And then they realized, and then they were watching something on TV. It's like, you can shake your baby to death. And like, they're like, I didn't know. And they're like exhausted. They're working, we're all doing the best we can. And so yeah, I appreciate you going into your personal story and really being open about sharing some of these things. So
I told you I was an open book, man.
I'm impressed because most people don't go that level, and I think it's important because I think understanding you're very tenacious and you will not fail, and that's if you have that mindset with anything, you will be successful. I was a music major before I was a business major. Most people don't know that about me. Mm-hmm.
Those are two different brain hemispheres. That's impressive.
That's me.
Although. Are they though? The artistic side is one side, and then the organizational side is the other. But music is very much organized.
It can be, yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of rules around music. What's dissonant, and I didn't fail the tests, but I remember, submitting like I just doing college level music, and couldn't even read music.
That's impressive.
Yes, and so, but I did switch because I was getting so much pressure from home, but also internally. I was just burning myself out in every direction, and I was listening to my soul, and I haven't picked up my guitar in a long time. It's kind of sad. It's something later in life I will pursue it. And me and my wife are big karaokeers, and what we do in the show, we actually incorporate things that are truly us, like the I don't know if you heard the jingle or whatever. I paid someone who's a local artist to write that for us because music, and we try to sing it, and y'all don't want to hear that version. But no, we probably will do it again once we have more practice and things like that. And we have Songbird, like our Wheel of Punishment represents us uniquely. And so anyway, I'm trying to say I really, really resonate with that. All right. So how did you get into AI? That is the big question.
So that comes along with understanding who I wanted to be. And who I wanted to be was the best father and husband I could, which means to scale a business, I have to find systems, right? So... And I'll go back and I want to put this out there too. I believe in authenticity. So why I'm giving my story is not because I'm just open because I like it. Like I hate it. I hate getting open. But the things that changed my life were whenever people told me the shit that they went through to get past it. So when I come on shows like this and I talk about it, if I'm not authentic, I'm doing other people a disservice. Right. Somebody once told me, and this was a marketing comment, if you get 10 likes on a post, do you think that's a lot?
I guess it depends if it resonates, but no, traditionally by numbers, it's not.
You walk into a room with 10 dead people on the floor. Is that a lot?
Yeah.
So if you can change one person's life or 10 people's lives because you opened up and you were honest and authentic, it's a huge impact that you make it on the world.
Absolutely.
So if you're out there and you're worried about what people think about you, don't. Tell your story, be you, because someone out there needs to hear your story. You could save a life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why I do that. But as far as, I guess, get me back on track. So AI. So I knew we had to have systems. And this came back to, so I went independent. We moved from Indiana to Johnson City. And I worked at AT&T that year. Like I sold cell phones. And during that time, I learned that I was good at sales. If somebody could bring in the deals, I was really good at sales. So we did that. Then we moved to Florida for second year residency where I got into life insurance again for a nonprofit organization that just did retirement planning. And so I did the annuities and the life insurance side, and then I passed the rest on to my Series 6 and 63 license bosses that did everything. And I got licensed at one point, and I told you this beforehand. I didn't want to go down that route because I wasn't passionate about it, and I didn't want to screw anybody over with their finances.
Right, you did talk about that. Yeah.
So that was in Florida when that happened. Then we moved, and I said, okay, you've gotten to choose the past 2 years, which wasn't a choice. They put them in a lottery for residency, and they have to go. It's a legal obligation.
That's right. Yeah.
Most people don't realize that. I didn't realize that at first.
You can have your top choices, unless it's different for doctors, but, and... Thank God my wife, she picked this place and was the number one choice. And I was just like, well, she was trying to find me. That's what I tell her. That's what I tell her. She actually was big in going to Texas because she loves a cowboy. But, she got me in suspenders. So, I don't know. I'm winning.
Put a cowboy hat. You look like a cowboy.
Yeah, I know, right? I actually have cowboy boots. A cowboy hat is in the making. So maybe I'll get one in Nashville.
Make it happen.
Yeah,
dude.
well.
Make your wife happy.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Happy wife, happy life.
Right?
I'm on my second marriage to figure that one out.
I was fortunate enough to find my woman early.
Yeah.
But that whole thing comes down to I ended up going with Goosehead Insurance, which was a captive broker. So they put together all the contracts, and then I came in as a franchise on there, and I bought in $25,000 up front to buy into the franchise. And
Where'd you get the money for this? Just savings or loans or?
it's from building. I'd gotten somewhat successful with my agency, had money saved, and put it in there, and it was pretty much everything we had at the time to do it. But
That's awesome.
I believe it was terrifying at the time.
Yeah, I bet
it was a lot of months of conversations before I pulled the trigger on it.
Sure.
But they flew me out to Dallas to talk to them, and I'm like, I love this. Signed up, got going with them. 6 months into it, they went public. When they went public, the entire company changed. And so, again, I'm not doing great at this point, but I'm doing good enough. Residual income stacks, it works. And I was making like $3,000 a month, and then it would stack. And then the next year I'm making 6 and 9, and it just stacks. So I learned the power of residual income there.
Right.
And it comes down to it. And I learned this: build your machine. Well, their marketing plan is let's go talk to mortgage brokers and realtors to get leads for whenever people are buying a home, and then they'll refer you the insurance business.
Right.
So when I'm doing it on social media, I started bringing in 50 leads a week. Built this up, and it wasn't overnight. It was 6 to 12 months over this time that it happened, but they're all over the country. They're not in my state.
Right.
So I start just taking it upon myself. My agency and I am getting licensed in all these other states. Yeah. Cool. Goosehead, no, it doesn't meet our marketing requirements, so you can't do this. We're not going to get you contracted in those states. Even though you're bringing in leads, we're public. It has to be our marketing plan. Otherwise, it doesn't hit the shareholders.
This is where you're starting to feel like, you know what? I don't know if I can work with.
100%.
I love it.
So I start thinking, well, what do I need to open my own brokerage? I had a 2-year non-compete with the carriers, not with the clients. So I could take my book of business with me. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to leave. I'm going to take all my clients with me, and I got to figure out what carriers I can get contracted with. Well, during this process, I find out the carriers aren't enforcing this thing because it's not technically ethical. Right. So you can't tell me I can't contract with these people again, and they're not enforcing. So I'm like, what do I need? I need a CRM. I need automations. I need to figure out how to do these blasts on birthdays, on renewals, all this kind of stuff. And so I started building a CRM.
So you built your own CRM?
I white labeled other people's systems, and then I made it my own.
Gotcha. So you customized what was...
Yes. Yeah. Yep. So I started building it out, and I find these lifetime deals that I paid one time, don't have to have all the overhead monthly on. And I hired...
I never heard of that until you said that earlier. I did not know that you could pay a lifetime membership, which is a powerful thing, especially with someone with your expertise, because you see that opportunity, like, if I do it now, then yeah, it's powerful.
There's good and bad with it. So it's a risk.
It's a risk.
These companies are doing these lifetime deals to get influx of cash without having investors come in and have a say in what their company does.
Right.
So you get in early and you pay enough money to it. You can have influence over it, but you don't guarantee that it's going to go in the right direction.
Right.
So you pay into these companies lifetime one time, but the bad thing is they've already got your money.
Right.
So some of them will fail. There have been a couple that I've paid for thousands of dollars into, and then all of a sudden they fall apart, and you can't get your money back because the company failed.
Exactly.
So there is a risk in it, but others that I paid into have grown, and now what's cool is I don't have any monthly overhead, and I've gotten to know the owner because I didn't just invest. I got to help them grow by giving them advice on how to make it better.
Right.
And now people are paying hundreds and thousands of dollars a month to have access to these systems that I just have.
That's awesome.
So now the barrier to entry gets a little bit harder. Now I have an advantage.
That is a hack right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful. The power, like what I say is, it's actually in my ebook, your network is your net worth.
100%.
So, I mean, I saying is one thing, but example right here.
Yep. So we did that, and we built it out, and I started building the CRM, and I thought, why do I want to do insurance? 2 reasons, right? Business needs money. Right. So an average insurance bind, I was making $260 a year on that policy because you get roughly anywhere from 10 to 20% of the yearly policy, and they do an advance on it up front. So you get that in that month, and then when the policy renews, you get that again, and then so on and so forth, and it continues as long as you maintain that client. With my systems, My lowest plan is $99 a month, all the way up to $5,000 a month. So now I went from yearly recurring income to monthly recurring revenue, which
Smart.
keeps it going better.
Right.
And I'm making these people 10, 20, 30, in some instances 100x what they're paying on my systems.
Awesome.
To now I'm giving you so much value that whenever your light bill is due and whenever your rent is due, you're looking at those before canceling my systems because they're so valuable to your company.
I love it. So let's dig into that a little bit. So you went through your background about what made you as a person and as an entrepreneur, which a lot of people don't hear that background. So that's very important. You built these skills in marketing. Some of your keys to your success, mentorship, and that's very common that I hear, and the networking, and also too, you didn't necessarily say it, and I will, because I feel like you 100% back me up. You put yourself out there.
I did,
and so all these tool sets you built over time, and so you landed into, you built your systems. Now, tell me about the AI aspect of things.
Yeah,
how'd you get into AI? Like and take me back on a journey where. I feel like AI and my group and my circle, I've heard about this stuff before it became mainstream, you know, and I was educating people at work and things like that. I've never heard of this. You never did. I'm pretty, like, you're smiling because does that sound like you?
100%.
So talk to me about when you first were introduced to this and how did it work for you and how you were like, wow, this is something I can really get behind. Because you went from sales and marketing insurance all the way to technology.
Yeah. So I'll go back again, high school. I had an interest in computers. I was tearing apart my parents' old desktops and putting them together to make, like, I would take the RAM out of one and put it with another one, and I would double the RAM on it. I would take the old hard drives and put it in here. Oh, this has another graphics card. Let's figure out how to loop those together and connect multiple.
So you always had this innate.
So I love technology.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I'll say is I grew up on sci-fi films. Like, I love Stargate. I love Star Trek. I love... the Terminator movies, which by the way, so many people reference it when I mention AI. I've gotten so much hate, and they're like, "You haven't seen Terminator?" I'm like, "It's a movie."
Which I'm gonna put a pin in that conversation, because at the end I do want to get into the ethical aspects of AI and what people's fears are, because that is important to address, because we don't do that, and that's one of the areas that we talked about before the show. We don't do that, and we authentically didn't cover it 360, and I'm a big 360 person, but we'll put a pin in that. But yeah, talk to me. So how'd you get into AI, and how'd you get into all that?
So all of this already had a background, but we were building the CRM, and all of a sudden OpenAI launches, and I'd already played in the playground before all this came out, was building some custom AI, but you didn't have access to the GPT stuff. You had Da Vinci, and you had all these old models that just weren't great.
What year?
It was COVID. I started learning Linux systems and started reading books to code a little bit and self-teaching, because I saw the future of that coming. Now I would tell you, if you're looking to go into coding, don't, because ChatGPT can do it for you.
Right. Which we'll talk about, some of those in a little bit, because I have some research too that I would love to bounce with you. But
dude, I'm all about it. We can nerd out together all day long.
We're gonna nerd out. We haven't nerded out yet. I feel like we told our background and our stories, but we haven't gotten to like the juicy part of the episode.
Yeah, sorry, I told my life story.
No. I really enjoyed, and you dropped so many nuggets about just where you come from, and honestly, I've learned some things from you, and I can learn anything from anyone, and I really learned a lot actually from you, just your mentality, and then very impressive. So talk to me about how'd you integrate AI, and how did you really get into it?
So I started using ChatGPT the day it launched. Like, I saw everything.
Do you remember what date was that? Do you remember?
Oh man, it was October something, wasn't it? I don't remember.
So guys, if you're watching, if you know the dates, let us know in the comments, because that's fascinating.
We can ChatGPT it.
Right. Right. We could.
I don't go to Google anymore. My first place is ChatGPT.
Yeah. I don't go to Google anymore either.
But so I started playing with it the day it launched, and so I started learning it and learning how to prompt and learn how to figure it out. I'm like, holy shit, this is so powerful.
I know.
And then they launched GPT, I think 3.5.
Right.
And then they did the paid version, which I've been on since day one of the paid version.
Same. I don't know about you, but I couldn't sleep When I first discovered it,
Oh yeah.
I was like, I swear I was having chills. I was like, well, tell me this, tell me that. I use it as therapy. The first 24 hours, I couldn't sleep. I was playing around with it, and my wife was like, well, you okay? I said, you have no idea what is going on in the world right now. I use it as therapy. It was very spot on. Oh, and it gave me the little things like, are you sure you want to share this? Yes, tell me the answer. Like I use it as a sounding board.
Yep.
You know,
That's still the number one way I use it as a sounding board.
It's an idea builder, and that's what I
100%.
tried to. And this is one thing I will say, and we'll talk about it. It's fine because I don't want the thought to fly out of my head. So I was really desperately trying to get this approved at work, and I'm going to share something that probably will get me fired, but I'm going to say it anyway. I had my team build a very elaborate urine, and I'm really big into this, and I used to spend 60 hours, 70 hours because personal development to me is so important. I don't want someone working for me unless they're working on themselves.
100% agree.
That's just me. And I used to get these little bullet points on page, and I looked at them as if I spend more time on your evaluation than you do, then that's a problem.
Yep.
And if you guys are listening, shout out to you guys. Thanks for following me here. Probably not working at Wells at this point. Anyway, but what I did was I would take it, I would take their information, and I would build a custom GPT, and it would spit out a performance evaluation, and it would take me 4 hours, 60 hours it was, seriously. And my wife knows, oh, you're doing evaluation time? I'll see you Monday. It's a all weekend thing. And I would cut it down to 4 hours, and I would look at my old ones and look at these ones. It was so powerful. And the thing is, I looked at it, and I was very particular. I was very, and I read it. I was like, that's better than I could have done.
Yep.
So anyway, I just wanted to share that story because I geeked out about it.
It's amazing. And now I've even gone to the point now, like when you talk about like financials in the business, my CFO has a form that I created that is a calculator. So I created a form which has our inputs. So it talks about where's your current monthly recurring revenue, how many do you estimate selling this month, at what price, and it will start to calculate our monthly recurring revenue. So I built a forecast form, and ChatGPT does all the formulations on the back end to give me the answers.
Yeah, I can learn a lot from you. Like, listen, I'm an enthusiast, and I have a team offshore that does automation. I was so impressed by them because I was interviewing them without them knowing it. But they sent an email first, then I watched a video. And like, this is for you. If you're not interested in this, then don't call us. I was like, oh, okay. Brilliant sales marketing, right?
Yep.
And then I had an AI person call me immediately. It was a nice, pleasant English voice. I was like, oh, this is great. And then I talked to a live person, but I was ready to buy at that point. Yeah. I said, fuck, if they can do this for themselves, these people mean business.
Yep.
And this is it's offshore, like and I saw their ads, and so far I've been really impressed. It's day 2. Hopefully they're right there where I need them to be. But I was super impressed, and that's just the power of AI, and they can do all the things that you don't want to do to customize. But let's talk about you, not about my experiences. so talk to me about how you transitioned to AI, and how'd you make it work for you, and then how'd you turn it into a business? But let's talk there, because I want to know this is where I'm so fascinated.
Yeah, so it came into the CRM, and I'm like, damn, this thing's so powerful internally, but how do I get it external? So one of the companies that I white labeled my systems through, I went to the owner and I'm like, dude, we've got to integrate AI into this portion of the CRM. Like, what can we do? And so he got his developers to start putting this together. They built out their own GPT type system on the back end, and we started building it out. And then ultimately it became it was going to be a booker first. So it'd book appointments for you, which is really cool. Like, you literally will have a conversation. You get to the point where it understands the context. And let me go back a step here. So OpenAI and any AI out there is the best at world knowledge. Like, it will pull up vast amounts of world knowledge faster than any single human can, but its context and reasoning skills are shit. It doesn't understand the full context.
100%.
So what we did is we took it and we built stages in there. So it gives it the framework that works kind of like a neural pathway.
Right.
And so what I do is I'll take a sales framework and I'll train it on the sales framework, and it'll go through every step qualifying out that candidate. And now, boom, once they get down here, they've qualified. Right. So now it'll offer them the opportunity to book a call with a human. So now
so you do all the qualified leads. So the thing is, like, when my wife and I looked into doing aesthetics, And this is what I think sets me apart from the average entrepreneur. And I'm not knocking you guys. And a lot of people say, I want to do an aesthetics business, you know. And when we want to do that, first thing I did was like, how do we automate the lease process? This. And already like people don't do that. You know what I mean? They just don't do that. You know, and even now, like that skill set. And I've done a lot of research, so much so that there's like 2 companies I follow. And one, this guy has built a marketing agency, you know, with Facebook, and he's like 1/4 of the price. That's monthly, but built all these systems and that's what he does. And I would talk to these aesthetics people who were mentoring with me, and they say like I spend my hours on the phone, cold calling and leading and prospecting when they sign up and then they don't sign up. It's so powerful.
Yeah, it's amazing what it can do.
Right.
Like, we've gotten to the point now, so we went from just conversational AI to where now I have AI that will ask you questions, fill out a form on the back end, and you want to sign up for our AI assistants, it will create your AI assistant in your account for you.
That's awesome.
Like, it's amazing where
That
it's
is
gone
insane.
to.
So you're actually automating your automation.
100%. Yeah.
That's some compound interest right there.
Well, what I found was the onboarding process is fairly robust because you have to teach people how to prompt. You have to teach people how to do things. Well, what I started doing is, well, my clients don't know how to build marketing content. So I created a form. What industry are you in? What's your ideal avatar? Who are you targeting? And
It's so funny you say ideal avatar. I had this whole discussion with someone yesterday about an ideal avatar, and they're like, I said, yeah. So I'm here with you on that.
The first time I heard it, I thought the blue people off of the movie.
Right. Or listen, I'm a Nickelodeon fan. The Avatar Last Airbender, anime, yep. And I'm authentically you like Stargate, I like anime.
Yep.
And Avatar Last Airbender is probably my #1 rewatch show next to Game of Thrones. I love that show.
GOT, baby.
I love it. I know, I love it. I'm actually rewatching it now. So
we just started rewatching it again too. Yeah, it's so good.
No way. Yeah. I'm out of bourbon. But
Oh no, you ran out of bourbon. No, well, I'll drink for you.
Drink for. Actually, I have a little bit left. Let's see.
But it's just amazing. Once I saw the power of it, I thought people can't ignore this,
100%.
which is crazy because people are ignoring it. Not completely. I saw a statistic 2 days ago that said 55% of Americans still have not used ChatGPT. That blows my mind. But that's probably the boomers. That's probably the older people. You have a huge.
It's crazy that the guy I was telling you about, that we did the whole Gary V. I reached out and I looked up and I always Google people. You know, I know. He wrote an AI for seniors book.
That's awesome.
Fucking smart is that?
One of the smartest people that I work with is a guy who worked for ESPN and a bunch of these things. This dude's getting into AI video. He's getting into AI audio, which we were talking earlier.
I'm going to talk to you about that off camera.
Dude, it's amazing.
Because my wife and I, we're so busy that we want to do some AI automation with vertical videos. And instead of having like a post where no one reads, you know, because I'm not getting a lot of engagement on those. I'm getting a lot of engagement on the reels, you know. Like, why not do an avatar of what we're wearing that day? And I want to talk to you about that, but we'll talk
there
about
are different ones that you can do, like cartoon character. Like, you guys already have your cartoon characters built out.
Thanks for noticing.
I do my research
Dope,
as much
right?
as you do. It is sick. I love your whole concept, by the way. This show's great.
Yeah.
But you can go and you can take that and upload that image, and you can put it into certain AI systems that will make the mouth move and talk. And then you can put audio behind it.
Dude, I could I'm jizzing in my pants right now. I would love to sit down with you.
Oh, dude, I've immersed myself in this for the past 2 years.
I have to what I can because I'm so busy doing everything else. This would be, I always will use AI.
He actually laughed at me at first and was like, dude, this AI thing isn't going to be all you think it is.
That's at that 25,000.
Again,
that's everything you had then.
Yep.
This 200,000 is everything you have now.
What we need to do is not bury our heads in the sand, but put in our input to be able to train it more on how humanity works as a whole, instead of letting the greedy people at the top use it for their benefit only.